Welcome into Around the Hornacek, as we will be bringing to you Knicks news every week. Tommy Hogan here alongside my colleague Oliver Miner, as we will be doing an off-season recap on our first episode of Around the Hornacek. We'll be coming to you once a week with Knicks news, recap of how the Knicks played that week, and a preview of the upcoming week's schedule. And we will have our segment every week called Brick or Bucket. That'll be coming up later in the show. But Oliver, first off, I want to talk about this exciting offseason that the Knicks had, as they signed a new head coach in Jeff Hornacek. They traded for Derrick Rose, a former MVP, and they signed Joakim Noah, former Defensive Player of the Year, Courtney Lee, a very good defensive player as well, and Brandon Jennings. Oliver, how do you feel about the hire of Jeff Hornacek? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Do you think there's better options on the table that Phil Jackson should have went after?
Honestly, I was never a big Hornacek fan. I always believed that Thibodeau was the right fit for them, especially with Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, his former players, coming over. He would have obviously brought his defensive intensity that he's known for. Knicks they're known for struggling on defense these past few years, and I think that's exactly what they needed. But we'll definitely be curious to see. Hornacek brings a more fast-paced, high-powered offense, which could work for them as well. But it'll be something to look forward to in the coming weeks for that.
I'm very interested in that as well, because Phil Jackson, he's linked to the triangle offense. That's his bread and butter. And Jeff Hornacek, he seems to already have convinced Phil Jackson otherwise. Is the Knicks will no longer be going towards that triangle offense. They're going to be going with the run and gun kind of offense that Jeff Hornacek liked to run in Phoenix with Eric Bledsoe and the recently traded Brandon Wright. So the Knicks needed to get these pieces for this run and gun Jeff Hornacek offense. And they went out and got themselves a point guard, former MVP Derrick Rose.
Yeah, I think Derrick Rose, he's obviously struggled with injuries in the past couple of years, and no one's really sure if he can even play anymore. I think if he can bring maybe 75% of what he could do his MVP year, I think they'll have a solid point guard who can bring the offense and he can play defense, and I think it was a good addition for them.
I think the key for Derrick Rose this year, Oliver, is if he can play 70 games. If the Knicks can get 70 games out of Derrick Rose, you're likely to get 16 to 18 points a game, I'd say. You're likely to get, hopefully, I'd say 8 assists a game. And that's exactly what the Knicks need. They needed a guy to go alongside Carmelo Anthony. They're a guy who's been there for 5 years now, leads them in scoring every year, is a great player for the Knicks. And now they have that point guard that they need. They needed to distribute the ball well to Carmelo Anthony, be able to facilitate with Carmelo Anthony, score with Carmelo Anthony. And I hope and think that Derrick Rose can do the job.
Right.
Now
let me just add this. He's never really had a point guard to play alongside of him since probably Chauncey Billups, and he was
Jeremy Lin, I guess.
Jeremy Lin for a couple
months. That lasted,
a few. But he's never had that solid point guard that could be the number 2 or 3 option on the team that he could really rely on if he was struggling.
The next guy that the Knicks got added to their starting lineup, their starting shooting guard now, is Courtney Lee, a guy who is very good defensively. Got traded at the trade deadline last year from Memphis to Charlotte. What do you think Courtney Lee can give to this team, and how do you think that improves the team?
I think obviously you want from him he's not going to be the number 1, 2 scoring option, but he's going to provide stability for them. He's going to be their number 1 wing defender. He's going to guard the best guy, best point guard, best guard. You're going to want him to bring it on the defensive end every night, and you're going to need him for knockdown threes. And you're going to want I think if he can bring 10 points a game to your team, I think he's going to be definitely a key piece to them going forward.
I think there's 2 things that are key for Courtney Lee. I think it'll be the defensive side, like you mentioned. I think that he's going to guard the best guard, like you mentioned, and that will help Derrick Rose in the future. So he can focus on the offensive side, stay healthy, hopefully not having to chase after the best guard on the opposing team. Courtney Lee's a very versatile player. He can play the 2 or the 3. He can guard the 1 through the 3. The second point is he can knock down that corner 3, which will be his go-to. Mellow drive to the basket, doesn't have a clear path, kick it out to Courtney Lee in the corner. He's got to be able to knock down that 3 consistently, and that's hopefully what the Knicks can get. They're looking for 10 to 12 points per game from Courtney Lee and just a solid performance every night, like you said, on the defensive side. Next up is the starting center. Joakim Noah, former defensive player of the league. What does he add to this team?
I think Noah by far was their best addition this offseason. I think He's going to bring that defensive intensity that they've needed. They haven't had that since Tyson Chandler's left. He's a former Defensive Player of the Year. He was going to bring it every single night. He's going to bring the intensity. He's going to get the crowd into it, and I think this was a phenomenal addition for their team.
Joakim Noah is going to be the heart and soul of this team. We saw it in the first game, or in this first home opener against Memphis Grizzlies. He got the crowd hyped up. Looked like he got his team hyped up. He played very well. He's not going to put up the points. If he averages double figures this season, I'd be surprised actually. But he does the little things. He can pass from the center spot. He's a very good passer from the center spot. Very good rebounder. Very good defensive player. He will do all the little things for this team, and he will be the leader of this team vocally and show it on the court. Be the vocal leader of the fans, as he will get them hyped up every game, hopefully. And it was a big addition, like you said. The last defensive center for the Knicks that they had was Tyson Chandler, and they got to the playoffs when they added him. Hopefully that can be the same result for Joakim Noah.
Right.
Then the last guy that they got was Brandon Jennings, a guy who used to be a starting point guard for the Milwaukee Bucks and the Detroit Pistons. He was a 18 to 20 point scorer. He was a very good scorer at the point guard spot, and he got injured 2 years ago and has not been the same since. What do you think he can add to this team?
I think he brings, obviously, he's got the scoring. He can knock down threes, quickness. I think his best attribute, though, I think, is his toughness. You've seen it in a couple preseason games, and here you've seen that he can compete with any play. He can go toe-to-toe with any of the best point guards in the league. He, obviously, with the recent stuff with D'Angelo Russell, where he called him soft, I think he just brings a New York attitude to the team, and that's exactly what they needed. And with their thin bench, they're going to need a lot of production from him. So hopefully he can bring some of that intensity this year.
Knicks have a very thin bench, and this is the one guy they got to upgrade that bench. This will be their sixth man. Hopefully he's probably gonna have to play a lot, because can you expect 70 games out of Derrick Rose? I'm not sure. So Brandon Jennings is that replacement for Derrick Rose if Derrick Rose does end up getting hurt. He's also a big vocal leader on this team, I believe, to go along with Joakim Noah and Carmelo Anthony. Brandon Jennings will go out there. He'll be that scrappy guy that if he's not on your team, you probably hate him. But if he's on your team, you like him. He's that scrappy guy that'll get in the face of other opponents. He'll stand up for his teammates. He can knock down shots offensively as well. He's a good scorer off the bench to have as your backup point guard, and he will possibly play in crucial moments on the stretches. Courtney Lee doesn't give you that offensive threat down the stretch when you do buckets, so they might be able to go to a 2-point guard set. This was a big get, I think, for the Knicks. A big signing for them and an important bench player for them.
Definitely.
The Knicks played the Cleveland Cavaliers, your defending champions, in Game 1, as the Cavaliers really did not, or came to play on ring night. The Knicks did not come to play, as they lose 117 to 88 behind a bad performance from Carmelo Anthony. Kristaps Porzingis really the only guy who played well. Oliver, what do you have to say about this game and how the Knicks showed up in their first game of the season?
Well, obviously, just looking at even the box score, you can just tell. You don't even need to watch the game how bad the Knicks looked. I mean, Joakim Noah, he had one field goal attempt, 0 points. Courtney Lee didn't score either. Carmelo Anthony didn't even score 20 points, which you're going to need that from him at least if the Knicks are going to be a legitimate contender. The bench looked bad. I mean, they were hanging with them for the first half, and all of a sudden, they started missing shots, and they just couldn't compete. The Cavs just proved that they were the better team. So, I mean, they're going to have to fix up stuff on the defensive end. They let up 117 points for the game, and it's the Cavs, yes, but, I mean, the Knicks, their defense is definitely going to have to improve for them to be good.
The Cavs got their finals championship rings in this game, and they really did not show anything off from their finals performance. They came out guns a-blazing. They come out and outscored the Knicks 28-18 in the first quarter. The Knicks did not look well. They looked flat in that first half, or in that first quarter, and then picked it up in the second half. They were only down 3 at half, and then all of a sudden it took off in the second quarter. LeBron James and Kyrie Irving had a huge game. Kyrie Irving with 29 points in 30 minutes in this game, shooting 12 from 22 from the field. LeBron James having a triple-double, scoring 19 points, 11 rebounds, 14 assists. Knicks aren't going to win against a Cavs team. They're not a better team. They're not going to beat them. But when LeBron James has a triple-double, it's not likely you're gonna beat them.
Right, and I think one thing is if you look at Joakim Noah, his minutes played for the Cavs game, he only had 20 minutes played. If you're going to want to lock up on the defensive end, you're going to have to play him. He's going to be the core of your defense. He's going to guard the paint. And I don't know why Hornacek decided to only play him 20 minutes. I guess there's something with their scheme. But
yeah, I don't understand. If you're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, you know LeBron James is going to be driving to the basket. A key component of your team is going to have to be a rim protector. And you only have your best rim protector out there for 20 minutes, Hornacek? I don't understand that. I don't think that was a good move. He only had one foul, so it wasn't even foul trouble. I don't know if he had some sort of injury in the preseason. There's nothing that I heard of. So I don't understand that move. I guess he's going to have to play against Tristan Thompson when you're playing against the Cavaliers. And I guess Hornacek just didn't feel like that was a good matchup. And I have to disagree with him. I don't think that was a good move.
And if you look at the plus-minus for all of the starters, you see Carmelo, Porzingis, Derrick Rose, Courtney Lee, all of them, their plus-minus was -19 or worse. When Joakim Noah was on the floor, it was just -1. So I think even just looking at something like that shows that when he's playing, he's bringing the defense. So
he's bringing the energy for the Knicks, and it shows in that plus-minus stat you just gave. Carmelo Anthony also only scored 19 points in this game. You're going to need a lot more from that. You're going to need a 30-point performance from Carmelo Anthony if you're going to want to beat the defending champs.
Exactly, yep.
Porzingis, he had 16 points and 7 rebounds. That's about what he's going to give you on this season. And Derrick Rose, he gave you 17 points in a good Knicks debut. But, man, you're going to need something out of Joakim Noah and Courtney Lee, and they just didn't get it. They didn't even get it from the bench. Nobody in double figures on the bench. As a surprising guy, and Justin Holiday plays 26 minutes off the bench against the defending champs. A guy who couldn't even see the floor, really, last year against the Chicago Bulls. He plays 26 minutes in your season debut against the defending champs.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign for the Knicks.
I think, honestly, Justin Holiday, he looked good, though. If he can bring...
He did go 2 for 3 from the three-point line. So, I mean, he had 8 points in 26 minutes. But
you could definitely look for him to maybe even overtake Courtney Lee. If Courtney Lee can't produce, they might go to Justin Holiday for that wing defender who can knock down threes. He may be the one they need, not Courtney Lee. So
now, here's a question. This is probably too early in the season. But we've seen that the Knicks bench is not deep at all. Does not have a very good bench at all. What are your thoughts on moving Justin Holiday into the starting lineup and maybe getting Courtney Lee on the bench to have some production off the bench? What are your thoughts on that possible move?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the first couple games of the
first
season.
2 games, so yes, an overreaction, but...
Yeah, obviously you want to wait and see if Courtney Lee can get back on his feet and see what happens there. But if it keeps up this way, I think they're going to make that move. I think Justin Holiday, he brings the energy defensively. So I think he could be better than Courtney Lee halfway through the season. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there.
I don't know if he can be better than him, Oliver, but he could be a guy that you could move into the starting role so you actually have a guy to go alongside Brandon Jennings off the bench.
Right.
Then the Knicks played against the Memphis Grizzlies in their season opener at MSG, their home opener at MSG. And the Knicks had a good win against a depleted Memphis Grizzly team who's without possibly the best defensive player in the league in Tony Allen, their shooting guard. And their newest acquisition, Chandler Parsons. The Knicks won 111-104. Another game where the Knicks, they started out great in this game. Like the first game, they had a good first half. But then in the second half, they lost their lead. But in the fourth quarter, they were able to regain it. What did you get out of this game, Oliver?
I mean, obviously, you see improvement a little bit from Joakim Noah. He had the 10 rebounds, 6 points. Courtney Lee scored 16 points, so it was actually really pleasing for Knicks fans to see that. The bench, not much there again. You had O'Quinn with 11, but you had Brandon Jennings with just 6 points. I mean, if he's going to be your number one guy off the bench, you're going to need more production out of him. I mean, they looked good. But it was a depleted Grizzlies team, so it was kind of a bad sample size to say if it's really a good win or not.
The Memphis Grizzlies starting lineup for this game, Oliver, was Andrew Harrison, a guy who wasn't even on an NBA roster last season at starting shooting guard. They had Mike Conley starting at point guard, now the highest paid player in the NBA. Still can't believe that. James Ennis at small forward. You have JaMychal Green at power forward and Marc Gasol at center. Now, this is a game that the Knicks should have won playing a team like that. Yes, if they have Tony Allen and Chandler Parsons in their starting lineup, the Memphis Grizzlies are probably better than the Knicks. but the Knicks had to have won this game. Not a must-win, obviously, yet. But you got to win a game where two of the starters are out on the opposing team. But a big thing for me, Carmelo Anthony only scored 20 points in this game. He had 19 points in the first game, 20 points in this game. He shot 5 for 15 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3. Melo's just not doing it on the offensive end to start the season so far.
Yeah, obviously, it's tough when your number one guy is scoring 20 points. You expect Melo to be more in the 25 and up range. But you had Porzingis who scored 21. Courtney Lee obviously had 16 before, and Derrick Rose had 13. He had some production there. You want Carmelo to be scoring in the 25 and up range. But if these guys can score 15 to 20 points, the rest of the starters, I think that maybe Melo won't need to carry he won't need to carry the load for the team. Maybe it is Porzingis' time to carry his part. So we'll see that going forward through the season.
See, I don't know if it's Porzingis' time to carry the team, but it's definitely time for him to help out. It's time for help out. But I think you do need 24 to 27 points a game for Melo in order for this Knicks team to be a good team come playoff time. But like you said, if you are getting 10 to 15 points from Courtney Lee, like we got 16 from him in this game. He had a good first quarter. You got 11 off the bench from Kyle O'Quinn, who has showed some promise now in these first two games. He looks like he has improved his jump shot very well. Joakim Noah really improved. Still, Oliver, only playing 22 minutes in this game. Very skeptical from Hornacek. I don't know. Like I said earlier, I don't know if there's some sort of injury there, but yeah, he ended up fouling out of this game. But I still feel like he could have played more minutes to begin he didn't get in foul trouble immediately. He had a few fouls in the fourth quarter. I feel like he needs to play 30 minutes a game for this Knicks team to be good on the defensive side. They gave up 104 points against the depleted Memphis team, 117 against the depleted Cavs team. It's not looking good on the defensive side, but yes, they put up 111 in this game.
Yeah, not really sure. My one thing with Noah is you bring in Hornacek, and what kind of offense he's going to have. He's going to have the fast-paced, running-gun kind of offense. And then you go and bring in Noah, and if he's obviously a great defensive player, but why
he can't run up and down the court,
bring him in if you're going to only have him play 22 minutes? Why even sign him? Why not go for a quicker center? It doesn't make sense to me, so I'm not sure. We'll see what happens, though, moving forward with that.
Another thing that I see here was Carmelo Anthony and Kristaps Porzingis played 36 minutes in this game. That's a lot. Those guys cannot be doing that week in or every game. So you need more minutes to come, more valuable minutes to come off your bench. As Willie Hernangomez only played 8 minutes. Lance Thomas is only giving you 19 minutes. He needs to play a lot more, I believe, and give some more production. As he only scored 6 points in the second game. He's your seventh guy. You need 10 points a game out of Lance Thomas.
Yeah.
He's a good player, a good defensive player who can guard the 3 and the 4, a good backup for Carmelo Anthony, and he hasn't shown it yet this season.
Yeah, and especially down the stretch when they're looking for the playoffs, you're not playing Carmelo and Porzingis 36 minutes a game. It's going to wear them down. It's going to take a toll on them. They're not going to be able to play. They're not going to get significant. They're not going to be able to play significant minutes in the playoffs then if they're averaging 36, 37 minutes per game during the regular season. So
come playoff time, you're playing your 8 best players usually. You usually cut down your rotation to 8 guys. And the next 8 guys right now would probably be Brandon Jennings, Lance Thomas, and you're going to need a big guy, so it's probably going to be Billy Hernangomez.
Or Kyle O'Quinn,
yes.
Yeah,
so it would be Brandon Jennings, Kyle O'Quinn, Lance Thomas would be your 3 guys. If you come playoff time, you're going to play 8 guys. Those are your 3 guys. O'Quinn had a good game, 11 points in 19 minutes. Lance Thomas was 6 points in 19 minutes. And Brandon Jennings only playing 16 minutes in the second game. He gives you 6 points and only 3 assists. You need more production out of those 3 guys.
Definitely.
Those are your 3 bench players that need to be in a key role for this Knicks team to succeed and get to a playoffs that they haven't been to in now 3 years. Next up, we have our segment that we will be coming to you every week that I mentioned earlier in the year or earlier in the show. We have brick or bucket. Brick means I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're off the mark. Bucket, yeah, I agree with you. I do think it's going to happen. So first off, Oliver, Porzingis leads the New York Knicks in scoring this season.
I think this is a brick. I think it's not his time yet. Carmelo Anthony obviously he's been scoring champion before. Carmelo is one of the best offensive players still in the league, even at his age. I think Porzingis he's gonna be number 2, slightly edging out Rose, but I don't think he's there yet where he can lead the Knicks in scoring.
I would have to agree with you. I don't see any way where Carmelo Anthony is not the leading scorer on this Knicks team.
Okay, so here's another one. If the New York Knicks don't make the playoffs, Hornacek will get fired after the season.
This is going to shock some people, I think. I say bucket. I think Phil Jackson has a very, very short leash on Jeff Hornacek this year. He went out and traded for Derrick Rose. Went out and signed 3 veteran guys who he believes can give production and send this Knicks team into the playoffs. And if Jeff Hornacek can't lead this team into the playoffs, if there's injuries, if there's some crucial injuries, maybe Phil Jackson understands it and gives him another year. But I believe if this Knicks team is healthy and doesn't make the playoffs, I believe Jeff Hornacek is gone already after 1 season.
I agree. I think they brought in all these pieces to fit Hornacek's system. I think if he's not able to make the playoffs with a weak East, I don't think he'll be back for the other year.
Oliver, the third brick or bucket. Brandon Jennings wins the 6th man of the year.
I also think this is going to come as a shock. I think he can do it. I think he's a legitimate contender for it. Obviously, in the first 2 games, you can say no. I think you're going to have to give him a little bit to click with the offense. I think he can do it from the scoring end. There's not that many 6 men that come to mind. There's obviously Jamal Crawford for the Clippers, who's done it 3 times already. But I think Brandon Jennings has a legitimate shot. With a thin bench, there's not going to be many other options, so it's going to be a matter if he can step up and get this production.
I'd have to disagree with you on that one, Oliver. I don't see that happening. He's only playing 15 minutes in these first 2 games. I do not see Brandon Jennings going. But let's hear your next one.
The New York Knicks emerge as a legitimate contender in the East and give the Cavs a fighting challenge in the playoffs.
Brick. There's no this Knicks team. They have 7 to 8 guys who are good players. Yes, Carmelo Anthony, a great player for the Knicks, but I don't think Derrick Rose can play 70 games this year. I think the Knicks can get to the playoffs, yes, but that Cleveland Cavaliers team, the Knicks are not a contender for them. There's no way they can beat them with a depleted bench that they have. The Cavs are probably the deepest team in the East, with the addition of Mike Dunleavy, who is a huge addition for them. This Knicks team just can't match up with them. They won't have anybody. Melo can't really guard LeBron. Porzingis has a tough time with Kevin Love. And Courtney Lee or Derrick Rose can't guard Kyrie, as we saw in this first game. So I'm going to go with brick on that. I do not think the Knicks can contend with the Cleveland Cavaliers in the East.
Right. I don't think they it's obviously a long shot for that to happen. And you're looking at the Eastern Conference teams right now. You have, I'd say ahead of them right now, you have the Bulls, the Hawks still are ahead of them, the Celtics, even the Raptors. All those teams are better than the Knicks, and people are saying Knicks are you can make a case for like 6 to 8, the 6 to 8 seed. That's if they don't have any injuries. They might not even make the playoffs. Exactly. So by the small chance they get in, I'm with you on that. I think 5 games at the very most they last if they play the Cavs.
Now, Oliver, the one team I do think, the surprise team in the East who I think can actually contend with the Cavs this year is the Indiana Pacers. They had a great offseason. They traded for Jeff Teague. They signed Al Jefferson, and they traded for Thad Young. Their starting lineup now is Jeff Teague, Monte Ellis, Paul George, Thad Young, and Miles Turner with Al Jefferson off the bench.
Scary team.
That's a very good team. I think they could have a chance to come out of the East. I think they're in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Cavs this year, and I think they could make something happen. That's a good team. I think that's a 2 seed in the East this year.
I think I agree with you. I think they're going to be looking like the Pacers from a couple years ago with Stevenson and Hibbert playing in their prime. I think that's definitely going to be a scary team for the Cavs, and hopefully the Knicks. I think the Knicks will get beat by them too pretty badly if they played them. So I'm not sure how confident I feel about the Knicks this playoffs.
Now, if the Knicks if they were able to pull off a 6 seed this year, Oliver, and say the Boston Celtics, who I think is a good shot to be a 3 seed, do you think that they could actually could pull off something and beat the Celtics in round 1?
I actually do think they have a shot at the Celtics. I don't think the Celtics are that good. I think they're an overrated team. They have Isaiah Thomas, and outside of that, not much scoring options. Obviously, they brought in Al Horford to be a guy down low that you can go to, but he's past his prime. I think the Knicks would actually have a very good chance of playing them if they face up with the Celtics in the first round. I think they can make it a 7-game series and possibly even win it and make it to the next round if they play them.
I would agree with you on that. I think the Celtics are built for the regular season. I think they're a very deep team with a lot of good players, but I don't think they have. Yeah, they have an all-star in Isaiah Thomas, but he's just now coming on. He's only 5'8". I don't think he can be a guy who can lead you in the playoffs. And like I said earlier, you're gonna have your 8 best guys playing, and I think the Knicks' 8 best guys could actually compete against the Celtics' 8 best guys, as they just don't have those few stars. They have the two all-stars in Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford, but I think the guys around that are not as good as the guys that the Knicks have around them. I think the Knicks could actually pull off something in the playoffs, but the Knicks have to get to the playoffs first.
Yep.
So we're looking forward to the rest of this week now as the Knicks play at Detroit. They play against the Houston Rockets at home, at Chicago, and they play against the Utah Jazz. 4 teams that were all in the playoffs last year, besides actually Chicago and Utah did not make the playoffs, but they are good playoff. They are teams who are likely to make the playoffs this year. Yep. First off, we're at Detroit. How do you think the Knicks fare against the Detroit Pistons?
I think that'll be a very good game. I think they're gonna I think you're gonna have to play Joakim Noah at least 30 minutes. Andre Drummond's one of the premier NBA centers. You know what he can do on the rebounding end and scoring end. He's one of the elite big men in the league. I think they can win the game if Noah plays 30 minutes and Melo scores 25 points. Otherwise, I'm not sure if they can do it.
I think these are 2 equal teams. These 2 are in the East. I think these 2 teams are battling for 6, 7, and 8 seeds. The Detroit Pistons at Detroit, I don't know if they can beat them. Like you said, I agree with you on the Joakim Noah point. He needs to play 30 minutes so he can guard Andre Drummond, or the Knicks are just going to get manhandled down low. Because no way Kristaps Porzingis can play against Andre Drummond. He'll get beat up down low. And maybe Kyle O'Quinn can give some minutes against Andre Drummond. O'Quinn's a big guy, but I don't think that can be sufficient for long enough. I think you need Joakim Noah to play 30 minutes in order for this to be a win. I think you need Derrick Rose to have a big game against Reggie Jackson. And I think you need Carmelo Anthony to have his first 30-point game of the year for this to be a win, because this Detroit team is a good team. They have a good nucleus in Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, a potential playoff team, and I think they could make the playoffs. So I think this would be a good win for the Knicks. I think it's going to be a good game. I say the Knicks do win this one. The next game is versus the Houston Rockets at home. Can the Knicks pull this one off against James Harden and company?
I think obviously whenever you're in the Garden, you have definitely a good advantage with the fans into it. However, James Harden has come out firing this year. He's averaged nearly 30 points, 10 assists.
New point guard for the Houston Rockets.
New point guard. You got Eric Gordon coming in who can bring it. I don't know. They're a tough team. Obviously, a lot of people say on the defensive end the Rockets they lack there, but it's going to be, I think, a shootout. I think both teams will be over 110 points, and it's going to come down to who can hit their shots.
Both teams not showing very well defensively, as the Houston Rockets lost in their first game 120 to 114 against the Lakers. The Knicks have not shown well defensively. I don't think the Knicks win this game. I think James Harden will. I don't think Courtney Lee can guard James Harden. I don't think Carmelo Anthony, or I think Trevor Ariza is a good matchup for Carmelo Anthony.
Yep, definitely.
I think he might be able to lock him down, put him under 20 points. I think Porzingis will actually have a big game against the Rockets, as Ryan Anderson will most likely be the one guarding him. Anderson can't keep up with him. I think it will be over 110 points, like you said, but I think the Houston Rockets end up winning this, and I think James Harden scores 40-plus points in this game.
I think the matchup to watch is definitely the shooting guard matchup with Courtney Lee and James Harden.
Lee, I think it's going to be a big matchup.
He's definitely going to wear him down. So you might see them go to Justin Holiday if Courtney Lee can't guard him.
Now, on Friday night on ESPN, the Knicks play against the Chicago Bulls at 8 p.m. Do you think the Knicks can play or can beat this new Chicago Bulls team with D. Wade now on their side?
Well, the thing with the Bulls is, before the season started, they got a lot of criticism for bringing in Rondo and Wade as guys that they were alphas for their teams, that you weren't sure if they could play with other guys who were the stars of their teams. People are saying they can't shoot before. The Bulls have looked good. Wade has looked really, really good from 3. He's They've said that he's been practicing all summer.
4 for 6 from 3.
He's been looking good, and so I think the Bulls are more of a defensive team. But if they can start hitting their threes, I'm not sure if the Knicks are going to be able to hang with them, because then you're not going to be able to stop any of them. Wade is obviously he's getting older, but he's still going to be a 20-point per game scorer. He'll be an all-star. Rondo's obviously a good playmaker. Jimmy Butler's a top 10 player in the league now, so there's a lot of weapons that they have. I'm not sure if the Knicks can contend with that.
The Chicago Bulls really confused me in this offseason. They acquired Rajon Rondo, D. Wade, and they traded for Michael Carter-Williams just before the season. Already before the acquisition of Michael Carter-Williams, there was complaints that they have so many guards that just can't shoot the ball. And they go out and trade for another one. They traded Tony Snell, a guard who can shoot the ball. You have Rajon Rondo, a very below-average shooter. D-Wade, a below-average shooter who, yes, has shown up so far from 3. And Jimmy Butler, who is also a below-average shooter. The Knicks might not be a terrible matchup for them, as Derrick Rose can back off Rondo. That's a good matchup. I think Derrick Rose and Rondo will be a very good matchup. I think Courtney Lee can hang with D-Wade. They both have very similar game types, I'd say.
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony and Jimmy Butler is also a very good matchup. I think Carmelo might need to really be good on defense in this game, as Jimmy Butler, will be good on defense.
I think also, just adding to that, I think you're going to have to see Melo. Melo's going to need other guys to step up. Butler's an all-pro defensive player. He's going to probably be on Melo the whole game. I think it's going to be who can step up. Is it going to be Rose, Jennings, Porzingis? All these other guys are going to have to step up for the Knicks to have a fighting shot at winning this game.
Porzingis, I think, is the guy who's going to have a big game. I don't think Taj Gibson can stay with Porzingis. Taj Gibson, a somewhat undersized power forward at 6'9". Porzingis, a oversized power forward at 7'3". I think Porzingis has to take advantage of this matchup, and I think the Porzingis-Taj Gibson matchup is the matchup to watch in this game, and will show who wins this game. I'm going to say the Knicks pull this one off in Chicago, and they beat the Bulls.
Another thing to look for, I just want to get your opinion on this. What do you think the reception will be like for the homecoming of Rose and Noah? What do you think?
I think it would be pretty good. I think Derrick Rose meant a lot to the Chicago fans. And I think Derrick Rose, I'd be shocked if they boo him or give him a bad reception. I think Chicago really liked Derrick Rose, and I think that's the same for Joakim Noah.
I agree.
I think they really liked him. He was the hype man like he is for the Knicks, and I think they'll both get very good receptions from the Chicago fans.
Yep, I agree.
And the last game of the week is Sunday, November 6th, against the Utah Jazz, a good Utah Jazz team now with Gordon Hayward and the newly signed extension of Rudy Gobert. How do you think that the Utah Jazz or the Knicks will fare against the Utah Jazz?
The Jazz, they're a scary team. I mean, a lot of people don't know a lot of Utah Jazz players, but they have a very underrated team, in my opinion. I think they're going to be I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. You look at some of their new acquisitions. They brought in George Hill, Boris Diaw, Joe Johnson. I mean, they got shooters. Gordon Hayward's he's a top 10 wingman in the league. They have Rudy Gobert, who's going to match up very well with Porzingis, I think. Derek Favors, what he can bring down low in the post. And I think this is a scary team. I would not write off the Knicks as a win.
Yeah, this is going to be – I think that these two teams – I think if you were to pick an equivalent of the Knicks in the West, I think it might be the Utah Jazz. Because I think George Hill and Derrick Rose are very similar players. I think Rodney Hood and Courtney Lee – Rodney Hood's got some length on Courtney Lee, but I think they have a similar game. Rodney Hood might be a better scorer, but they're both good defensive players. I think Joe Johnson and Carmelo Anthony, yes, Melo is in his prime right now, and Joe Johnson's past his prime. But I think they both have the same mid-range to three-point skill set. They can face up against their defender. I think that'll be a good matchup. And then Derek Favors, I think Joakim Noah will end up guarding Derek Favors. I think that's a better matchup than Rudy Gobert. I think those are two similar guys. Derek Favors is a better post player, but I think they're the same size. I think they can match up well against each other. And then Rudy Gobert versus Kristaps Porzingis will be a very good matchup. Two just long guys, shot-blocking guys. Kristaps Porzingis, the better offensive guy. But I think these are two very, very similar teams. I think it'll be a very close game, and it's at home in MSG. I'm going to go with the Knicks in this game.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting game to watch. I think the Knicks end this week. I think they're going to go 2-2. I think they're going to I'm going to say they're going to beat the Pistons on Tuesday, and I think they're going to drop against the Rockets. I think the Rockets, there's just too much there. I think they're going to be stunned by the Bulls. I think the Bulls are going to bring it on Friday, and then I think they're going to finish out with a win on Sunday. So I'm going to say 2-2 for the week.
I'm going to be optimistic here. I'm going to say that the Knicks go 3-1 on the week. I think they beat the Pistons in the Palace of Auburn Hills. I think they lose to the Rockets at home. I think they go into Chicago and stunt Chicago on ESPN. And I think they beat the Utah Jazz at MSG. I think it'll be a good week. These are 4 good games too. The Knicks haven't had a cupcake game yet this season, especially with these 4 and plus the first 2. The Knicks have a tough schedule to start the year. And Oliver, to go along with this tough schedule, we'll look for the whole schedule now. How do you think that the Knicks will finish this season? Give me your predictions on the next season.
I think that they squeak into the playoffs as an 7 or 8 seed, pending there's no injuries. I think if there's any of their key players get hurt, I don't think they're making the playoffs. But optimistically looking, I think if they can stay healthy, all their starters get 70-plus games in, I think you're looking at 45 and 37 overall.
You're a lot more optimistic than I am. I think the Knicks are a 43-39 team. I see them 43 wins to 45 wins up at the top of their range here, like you said. And I think they do just squeak into the playoffs though with 43 wins. I think they're a 6 through 8 seed. The Knicks the East is deep this year, but I think the Knicks can squeak into the Eastern playoffs and make it to the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. And that would be huge for the fans of New York, and it would be huge for Melo. The Knicks will definitely be having an entertaining season, as they have had a big offseason, an entertaining offseason, and now have a lot of question marks. We'll be back next week with how the Knicks did during this week and see if our predictions for the week matched up well. Around the Hornacek is now on a 168-hour break. See you next week, Knicks fans.